While knives are known for having flashy over-the-top skins, the vanilla knives stand out as a classic option for someone who wants a bit more of a subtle inventory with great animations. Today I wanted to go over every vanilla knife currently in the game, and their prices as of today, showcasing their animations and look in game. The vanilla Bayonet is a very clean knife with a classic look and a huge upgrade in the animation department compared to a default knife. These still shine pretty great in most lighting conditions, and honestly I enjoy this version of the Bayonet over some of the actual skin patterns in the game, like Damascus Steel. The price on these is a bit higher than some of the lower tier knives, but it isn't anywhere near an M9 or Karambit. Currently on CS Float, the cheapest version of this is costing about $420, which is not too bad for such a good knife. Butterfly knives always look great, but their price puts it out of reach for most casual players. The vanilla knife is a great way to get a butterfly without having to pay as much. They still cost a pretty penny, but it's the best way to get a butterfly that doesn't look like crap. The main reason people want this knife is usually the animation anyways, and the animations on this thing really do look great. The price on these is pretty high, about the same as a high tier M9 or Karambit, but on CS Float the cheapest one is about $1,700 as of today. The survival knife has flown pretty under the radar since its addition to the game, I think mainly due to its main animation not really looking that great. The rare animation is pretty good, but I think they should just make that the main animation to really boost its popularity. These knives are a good bargain though, and they really do not cost that much compared to a lot of the other options available. The cheapest vanilla version is only about $160 as of today on CS Float. It's a solid knife if you're on a budget. The Paracord knife is another knife that has gone pretty underrated for a while ever since it was added. The animations do leave a lot to be desired, and I think that has kept the prices down near the bottom of the market. While I personally don't enjoy this knife too much, I do get why some people love it, and it works out for them since they are pretty affordable. If you're on a tight budget, this knife only costs about $150 on CS Float as of today, which makes it one of the most affordable vanilla options out there. The classic knife is definitely one that doesn't get enough love. Especially in vanilla, this knife just oozes nostalgia and style. This is a knife that every time I see it, I can't help but make a mental note that it looks great. Thankfully, these aren't too insane price-wise either. While they do cost a bit more than the lower tier knives, the lowest price one currently on CS Float is about $285. That isn't the worst price considering what a classic this is. Falchion knives are definitely a solid choice for people who don't want to shell out cash for a high tier weapon. They have a decent inspect animation, but the pull-out animation definitely isn't the cleanest or smoothest. That being said, I do think this knife is starting to pick up a bit in popularity as it becomes seen as more OG despite only being added in the Falchion case itself. The price on these currently is about $170 on CS Float, which is not the worst thing in the world considering how cool this knife is. Flip knives have developed a cult following, which has pushed the price up quite a bit considering how simple the knife can be. It does have a very slick animation if you want something more low-key, and the blade is definitely iconic at this point. I do think the more pronounced color differences added in CS2 make this skin look a lot better than it did previously, but the price is a bit stiff for a vanilla knife at $300 currently. Gut knives get way too much hate considering what they are. The handle can look a little goofy on some skins, but overall the idea of walking around one-shotting special operations forces with a fishing knife is pretty funny. These aren't meant to be some crazy high tier knife, but they have their place in CS that I enjoy. The price on these aren't too bad at all, with the cheapest one on CS Float costing about $125 as of today. This is a great first knife or just one to add to the collection to use every now and then. The vanilla Navaja knife is honestly one of my favorite versions of this knife. While it is the butt of a lot of jokes, the carving into this blade with the handle really does make the knife look a lot better than most skins in my opinion. This knife is probably one of the best deals unless you want to rock a safari mesh knife. And on CS Float, you can have one of these bad boys for just $120 as of today. That is pretty good considering this is the best looking version of this knife. The vanilla Karambit is definitely one of the best looking knives in the game. The animation is undeniable one of the best in the game, and on top of that, the vanilla version looks pretty great. The writing on the blade makes it look clean, and I actually like the texture in the pattern quite a bit too. The only downside of this knife is the fact the cost even for a vanilla version is pretty pricey at over $1,100 currently on CS Float. Yes, that is the cheapest one currently on the market for a vanilla Karambit. The Kukri knife is the newest addition to the game in way of knives. I think it is pretty clean, but they should have given it a unique animation instead of just taking the spin of the Huntsman and gut knife. That being said, I really love the unique blade and style this knife has going for it. While the other skins might look better than the vanilla version, there is something tactical about this knife. The price on these is currently about $315 on CS Float. The M9 Bayonet is an all-time classic with a super clean animation alongside one of the best looking blades in the game. This knife has always been one of my favorites because I had one of these way back in the day as one of the first knives I ever owned. I think the vanilla version honestly looked a bit better back in CSGO, but in CS2 it still is a great option, especially if you're going for a black themed loadout. One downside of any M9 Bayonet is the price, and currently the cheapest one on CS Float costs almost $1,100 as of today. Nomad knives are a particular knife that could be a lot more popular if it had a better pull-out animation. The blade itself is super clean and it looks great. The handle is awesome, but after watching my guy cut his finger for the 6th time in a row, it gets a little old. I know that is just my opinion, but I think this knife should get an update to add more pull-out animations. The price on these isn't too crazy, with the cheapest one on CS Float currently costing around $360. Shadow daggers are definitely one of the most underrated knives in the game. The dual wield look is super cool in my opinion, and the super low prices make them even more appealing. The plugs are definitely a great meme knife as well, and I feel like the vanilla look is one of the most plug looking skins available for the knife. One of the coolest things about these is that they fixed that stupid Twitch bug that plagued them in CSGO. The cheapest price currently on CS Float is about $120. Skeleton knives are definitely in a pretty solid spot as far as the CS economy goes. If they ever decide to make the rare animation the default animation, then these things will become one of the most popular knives in the game. It has a very unique blade and pretty cool animations, and honestly the vanilla look really does give it a cool black look that looks great, especially with Nocts. The price on these is definitely higher than the lowest tier, with the cheapest one costing about $600 on CS Float today. The Stiletto knife is very unique, and the animations make it have a unique feel compared to other knives. The vanilla look is pretty clean, especially with the handle giving it a good contrast. The blade itself is pretty skinny, but especially with the new looks in CS2, it looks fantastic in most lighting. Even in this train footage, the water droplets make it really pop. The cost on these is about $350 on CS Float currently. The Bowie knife is a great knife with a solid animation and large blade. The vanilla version is pretty clean, and I especially like the handle popping a bit. The Bowie got a big upgrade when it came to CS2, and I feel like prices haven't caught up with the look of this knife in reality. That is a good thing if you're a fan of this knife, cause the prices are pretty low currently. On CS Float, the cheapest one is just over $150, which is a pretty solid price for how great the knife is. Huntsman knives are criminally underrated in my opinion. The blade is incredible looking and the animations are pretty subtle yet easy to look at. I think the shape of this knife is one of my favorite things about it, and the two-tone metal on the vanilla version is especially good to look at. The cool thing about most knives being pretty underrated compared to an M9 Bayonet is that the prices make them much more attainable. On CS Float currently you can get one of these for just under $200. The Talon knife is in a solid position amongst all CS knives. It's known as the cheaper Karambit, but that doesn't stop it from having immense draw for its cool animations and unique design. The coolest thing about the vanilla version is that the blade has an ivory look to it that make it looks great with any white gloves or agents with white sleeves. I believe that this knife will eventually get a stable increase in price as more knives are released and it becomes more OG to the community. And I think it has a solid spot in the economy for years to come. They cost a pretty penny, with the cheapest version on CS Float currently costing about $375. Ursus knives are definitely a clean option for most collectors. While some people hate it for looking like a box cutter, I think it has a very clean look to it. While the vanilla version isn't bright or overt in its color, the animations on it are clean and pretty fun to do mid-round. While this knife has split the community in terms of its opinion, it does have a pretty reasonable price currently. On CS Float, the cheapest one currently on the market is about $200, which isn't bad considering how this knife looks in game. Those are all the vanilla knives currently in the game. They have a clean, unique look and are definitely price competitive with most other options. If you like this video, we are cataloging every CS skin in the game and would love your support.